And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Joelle Kaufman. Joelle, thank you for being here and taking some time to just hang out with me.
It's such a pleasure, Michael. I love your energy.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Joelle she has a vast background in doing all kinds of things. Right now she works with SaaS leaders to help them, I think, really build themselves, their culture, their teams, and make a greater impact. And we're going to just dive into that and unpack this thing called that she talks about flow state, which I'm really interested about. And you just got a lot going on that I'm anxious. So as we get ready to jump into the deep end, Joelle, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Yeah. So it started with failure. And I always thought, I'm pretty charismatic. I'm decisive. I actually enjoy leading people because I enjoy what we can accomplish together. And
Mm,
when I was 18, I was elected to lead my pledge class, which sounds really cute, but it was 48 women. And if you've ever led a group of people, 48 women is not the easiest group to start with.
hmm.
And we set goals, and I made sure we hit our goals because that's what leaders do, right?
Right.
I completely missed the context that that's not what women join a sorority to do, right?
Mm,
They join to form friendships and relationships. And so I was so accomplishment driven, which is my hot button. It was about me and showing I was a good leader because we could accomplish what we set out to do. Let me be clear, in business, you do have to get the results. So I
mm,
wasn't wrong. It's not bad to be accomplishment driven, but I was myopic. There was more to the picture. And while we did achieve our goals, they wound up not liking me very much. And
hmm.
when I was initiated and became a full member, I was not elected to any significant office. And I was hurt because I thought I did a good job. And while I'm licking my wounds, poor me, I sat down with the incoming president and she looked at me and said, "You're upset." Yes. "I think you could be the next president of this house," to which I laughed.
Hmm.
She said, "No, no, no. You've got the thinking, you've got the decisiveness, you've got the drive. What you don't have is the right way to communicate." And
Mm,
my
mm.
mind was blown because I wasn't using two ears and one mouth. I was just using mouth.
Right.
So, how do you use your ears? How do you learn how other people need to hear? And how do you understand what the purpose is of the team and how the team can realize its purpose in a way that the team feels fulfilled and enjoys? So I ended up majoring in it. I'm actually the first person from the University of Michigan to graduate from the Honors College with a degree in organizational studies. I just went deep. And I went deep, and what it taught me is leadership isn't something you have to be born with. In fact, you're probably not.
Hmm.
Leadership is a skill like any other, and it needs to be nurtured and cultivated, and you will learn the most through your failures and setbacks.
Wow.
And that's how it all began. And as I moved into leadership roles in the tech industry, I saw a lot of what I call curveballs. And the
Hmm.
teams that I could form in a way that had clarity of goal, that was on me, clarity of role, that was on me, autonomy and execution, that's on them, transparency, all of us, and accountability, that's on me. Um, when I could do that, the teams reached a flow state. And when
Mm.
they're in flow, they are not additive, they're exponential.
Boy, that's good. That's good. I love the five things that you just talked about there. And talking about leadership, um, I had this vision come to me. It's like, and I was sorry, I think in book titles, right? And
Sure.
it was um learning leadership, because it is something we learn, and listening leadership, because to be a
Mm-hmm.
great leader we have to listen, to discern, to have our all of that, because people want to be heard and understood. They also want to be led.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody has that. And so talk to us about I love this curveball method. So what is this curveball method that you've developed over time to help leaders?
Sure. So I actually am a really cruddy baseball player. I was going to use an expletive, but I figured that might not fly. I'm a cruddy baseball player myself, really laughable. And I didn't love baseball, but I happened to give birth to a baseball phenom, to a kid who is a natural athlete, and baseball just spoke to him from the point that he
Wow.
was 2. And so as a consequence, he's almost 21 now. He's still playing ball. I went to more baseball than I ever intended in my life.
Yeah.
And my son's an outfielder hitter. And so I'd ask him, so what do you do? How does it work? And he kept using the word approach. I was like, approach. And I realized that when I lead, part of my harnessing all of my senses, part of my pulling the 5 levers, which is the resource I'm going to offer to your listeners, right, was my approach. And my approach was what's important. So I have to step back and I have to pause so that I have to reset my own emotional reaction so that I can tell, am I reacting? Or is this actually important? What's important? So that's the first step. So when you all have an approach, it starts with what's important. Now,
Mm.
the next part of the approach, the curveball method, is what are my strengths? So when a batter goes into the batter box, they're looking for certain pitches. And depending on what they're seeing and where they are in the count, they're changing their approach. But when you hit a curveball, you actually lean into your strengths. If your strengths are your hand speed or your
Mm-hmm.
legs or your torque, but you're going to leverage your strengths. Well, that's the same for a team. When
Mm.
you see a curveball, and Michael, you're always seeing curveballs.
All the time.
So it's not if, it's when you have to focus and then know what your strengths are. Now, I'll pause here. As a leader, it is your responsibility to continuously be assessing strengths and building up your team, either by adding different people with different strengths or doing development to help build more strengths, right? Having
Right.
great legs and great hand speed, better
Right.
batting.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay. So now we've got focus and strengths. Let's come back to mindset.
Mm.
Curveballs, all of them. I've had curveballs with cancer. I've had curveballs with losing customers. I've had curveballs with a key employee finding a phenomenal new job. They're all curveballs. They lose your balance,
Yeah.
right? And you're going to teeter for a moment. Depending on how big and how personal the curveball,
Right.
are you really teetering? So what you need is to reset your mind.
Mm.
And here's the mindset difference. This is not something happening to me. This is
Mm-hmm.
something I get to do,
Yeah.
right? And when it's I get to do it, that is unbelievably powerful. So curveballs are inevitable and they're fun. They're different. They make it interesting. Now, I will never say the cancer curveball is fun and interesting and whatever.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Michael, my cancer curveball unlocked one of the happiest years of my life. And
Mm.
we'll talk about that.
Yeah. I
But
want.
mindset, resources. Now, resources are a little different from strengths. If you're putting together your approach, how much money do you have?
Mm-hmm.
How much support do you have from your board? Do you have partnerships that you can leverage? What are the resources at your disposal in addition to your strengths? So that's
Mm-hmm.
the square of the approach. Now, as you go through that, my people who use the curveball method, they can go through that pretty quickly, right? Because they already know their resources and strengths. They have a practice for the mindset and the focus. Then you get to the point of home plate, which is leadership. Leadership is
Mm.
how you communicate, how you collaborate, and how you commit.
Love that.
And that's the curveball method. When we work on it, we help people create their approach, make it natural, make it a habit. So they know I'm going into work. I'm opening my email. I'm going to read a Slack. And if I see something, oh, let me go back to my approach.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing, the coda on the approach is in baseball, you get 3 strikes. Turns out most of the things we all do for a living, you get 3 strikes. So
Interesting.
if your approach doesn't work, if you tried something, you're like, oh, that wasn't the result I was hoping for, adjust it and
Yeah.
try again.
Yeah, that's good. Because I was just sitting here thinking about your son. When he goes up, I'm sure once in a while he probably strikes out.
Hmm,
And then he comes back up to bat, and I bet he's making some adjustments. If the same pitcher's in there going, okay, I know what he did. I've been watching the dude. I'm going to do this to change his approach to still utilize his strengths, I would guess, right? Same thing in business,
exactly.
right? Same thing in
Exactly.
business. And
It's the same thing in life.
yeah, it really is. Let's pivot because you mentioned something that I want to come back the cancer curveball because
Yeah,
you've written a book that's soon to be released and published, not by us but everybody else, and that's okay. People to understand this what you've written about, why you wrote about it,
sure.
and before we got on this, you're like, Michael, you're believing one of the myths out there about cancer. So talk to me about that. Unpack that.
Okay. So my familial genetic cancer and is breast cancer. Now,
Okay.
it does turn out that 90% of breast cancers are not genetic, or at least we don't know the genetics, but I'm in the other 10,
Okay.
which is actually a gift because a lot of people who develop breast cancer or any other form of cancer say, what did I do wrong? Did I
Right.
eat wrong? Did I exercise wrong? So if nothing else gets viral from your podcast, you did nothing wrong. You have an errant cell that got away from your immune system.
Hmm.
That's what happened. It's not your fault. Okay.
Love.
Now I had the answer. Mine was not only did I have an errant cell, but I had a genetic mutation that disproportionately causes that to happen. So I'm a
Okay.
40-year intergenerational breast cancer survivor. There's actually been 10 cancers in my family, of which I'm one of 5 in my immediate family with breast cancer. And here's the big question. What percent, Michael, of people diagnosed with non-metastatic breast cancer survive more than 5 years? And 5 years is when science stops tracking them.
Oh. I have no idea. I'll say
Number, play my
38%. I'll say 38%.
38% of people with early stage breast cancer survive. You ready for the number?
Yep.
99.
Wow. I was wrong.
Wow. So, what can we take away from that? And then I'll answer the question about the book. 1, early detection saves lives.
Yes.
Be vigilant about monitoring and observing your own body. That doesn't mean it's your fault if you get cancer,
Right.
but if you're not doing the screening you should be doing, if you're not self-examining, you're missing an opportunity to catch something early when you
Yeah.
can obliterate it. So my mother's a 40-year survivor because it was caught early. And our flavor of breast cancer is called triple negative breast cancer. It's a very aggressive beast. My mother's a 40-year survivor. My sister's a 20-year survivor. I intend to be a 50-year survivor because we
Yeah.
caught it early
Yeah.
and because there's good treatment, 99%.
Mm-hmm.
So early is the answer. And 2, if you catch it early, cancer is going to be something you live through.
Mm.
Now, there are types of cancer that can't be caught early, ovarian cancer or
Mm.
pancreatic cancer. And unfortunately, those are much lower survival rates because they're caught later.
Later.
So I love supporting people that are researching how do we detect things earlier. There's some exciting things happening in screening and blood screening, but that's not what my book is about.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the book, Michael, because when I got the news that I had breast cancer, it was the day before I was supposed to have a prophylactic bilateral mastectomy. And so that's kind of the universe flipping you the bird. And
Mm-hmm.
for the moment, the earth stopped spinning and the oxygen left the room. So I was like, oh, and then I let out a string of expletives. And then I knew what to do next. Like literally, I knew exactly what to do. I knew what to expect because I'd seen it before, because
Mm-hmm.
I'd lived it before. And the difference was I was a much more effective patient because I knew what to ask. I knew what to expect. I knew to manage my symptoms of my side effects aggressively, proactively. I knew to ask for help early and I knew what kind of help I was going to need. Now, that's a playbook. The result was I could box my cancer into 1 day a week. And my hair, it's only been in January, it'll be just under 2 years since I had chemo.
Wow.
Let me assure you, nobody's hair grows this fast. I didn't
Uh-huh.
lose most of it,
Uh-huh.
right? I worked out the whole time. I had so much love that I invited into my life, and I created, no, I embedded happiness tripwires into the journey. So I'll tell you
Love.
about those, but because you're going to ask, I wrote
Uh-huh.
a book so that every person who is diagnosed with cancer, which in the United States will be 1 out of every 2 people.
Wow.
Now that includes skin cancers that are
Right.
often,
Yeah, yeah.
right, not
Still.
that serious, but still it's cancer. You hear the word. Um, so 1 out of every 2, this is a playbook. It weaves in my family stories and 25 other, well, I chose 12, but I interviewed 25 other people and wove in their stories to lay out this is what you do at every stage to craft how you want to go through this journey your way,
Mm,
right?
very good.
How do you want to do this so that you feel power, strength, and hope?
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I feel like I was born to write that book.
That's
I
awesome.
lived it, right? I lived it. People were following me on my very private Caring Bridge. And the words I kept getting was, you're inspiring me. I wish I had this when I went through it. I
Wow.
wish I had this when so and so who I love went through it. And so, and you know, because you work with authors, I thought, oh, I'll just take my Caring Bridge and make it a book. No, God,
Yeah. Good luck with
it was
that.
not that. My God, it was like so much harder.
Yeah.
So much harder. And I'm so thankful for the editors and the readers and people who helped. But I wrote the book so that nobody who was in that moment of being off balance, that newly diagnosed,
Wow.
would have to figure out the playbook. I wanted them to have it.
Wouldn't it be cool if your book were like in every doctor's office, right? So that
Absolutely.
when they deliver the news, they deliver the book and say, just you need to read. I mean, wow, how cool would that be?
Well, and often it's someone's close friend. Like you tell people, right? Like, this is going on. And the reaction of the friend is, oh my God, that sucks.
Yeah. With
What
nothing
can
to
I
do.
do?
Yep.
So here's what you can do: read the book, give the book. And if you buy the book, read chapter 16, which is all the things you can do from the sidelines to support
Mm,
the batter.
awesome. Real quick, what's the name of the book?
Crushing the Cancer Curveball,
Okay.
a playbook for the newly diagnosed and their family and friends.
Love it. Crushing the Cancer Curveball. That's a great title, by the way. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. So, all right, go to Amazon after you listen to this. After you listen to this podcast, go to Amazon, and it should be there by the time this podcast airs.
Actually, it
Crushing the Cancer
publishes,
Curveball.
yeah, it will be live and available on January 28th. So
Okay, awesome.
depending on when you
Yep,
when we publish,
yep.
but January 28th, or they can go to www.joellekaufman.com and get on the email list and just be alerted. Hey,
Love it.
it's available. There's also a bunch of very pragmatic resources for people to use to shape the journey. So
Yeah,
those are available now.
love it. Thank you. Thank you for giving us that snippet. That was a kind of an aside, but we wanted to get there because honestly, I mean, dare I say, that message might be more important than the original message of crushing the leadership curveball. I'll
Right.
just put that in there. But they're both really important. And if as a listener, I mean, think about this. I mean, Joelle, when we work with authors, right? I always look for that personal story to go, oh, how do I weave your personal story into what you do in business? Yours is pretty obvious, right? And it's really good how she's woven all of this because if you can't understand the baseball theme that we were talking about to the cancer curveball to back here to leadership, I mean, there's a marketing summary right there that our listeners need to just stop and rewind and just to listen because it's brilliance in how you set this all up because you've taken your experience with your son with your cancer, with how you do the it's just well done. So right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. It's just it's dare I say it's rare. So praise God. It's working. So okay, go let's get back to business and leadership. So you've created this I'm calling it a structured approach. that
Yep.
you work with leaders to help them find their strengths, their approach, their make sure their mindset's right, right?
Right.
Making sure the resources are there so that they can lead confidently when they experience a curveball, but really every day because curveballs
Because
are
they
coming
will experience a
all
curveball
the
every
time,
day.
every day.
Right.
And so, what do? We don't go, ah, no, we're prepared because we're anticipating it, which is part of leadership. And we have the people around us, and we know our strengths, and we put people around us who have other strengths, hopefully. And that's how you work with leaders of industry, right? Of
That's
company.
right. Now, I specifically, I tend to work with mostly leaders who have, I'll call it revenue responsibility. So they're
Okay.
in marketing, they're CEOs or they're sales leaders, and they feel a personal obligation because without revenue, companies, organizations die. Like
Yeah.
it's oxygen. So
Yeah.
I work with the people who are in the oxygen business. And I
Exactly.
want to actually bridge for you for a moment the cancer thing and the leadership thing
Mm-hmm.
with this, another statistic. If you're running an organization with 1,000 people, 0.6% of them are facing cancer. That's the stats. So if you don't think people in your organization are either facing it themselves or in their families, you're not using your ears.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you have to stop everything and go on a hunt for who's dealing with cancer. Like, that's stupid. But you need to create an environment where your teammates can tell you, hey, something's going on and it's distracting me. I want you to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, I want you to know, what do you say and do next? So I'll tell you a short story. It's not a cancer story. I was
Okay.
leading a team and we had, let's just say my team had about 70 people. And my number two, who managed 60 of the 70, calls me. I'm actually at a ball game of all places. He calls me and he says, I'm in trouble. I'm headed to the hospital. I should be okay, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be working for the next, I don't know, at least 4 weeks. I have a virus that is paralyzing me, moving, and it's gotten to my waist. And I just need you to know. I said, okay. So quick approach. Like, first off, do you have transport to the hospital? Like,
Yeah.
I do. Okay. I am so sorry this is happening. I am glad the outlook is good. Um, I want you to take all things connected to work off all of your devices until you're ready to work again. We will handle it for you. And can we set up meals for your family? How can we support you through your church? What are the things that you will need?
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, how much do you want me to tell people?
Yes.
Because that's your call. I can simply tell them you're out of pocket for 4 weeks, or I can tell them what's going on. It's your choice.
Yes.
And he's like, okay, um, just tell them that I have a medical thing going on and I'm going to be unavailable. And thank you for taking on everything. I
Yeah.
think nothing of it. Just focus on your health.
Yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
that's one of the more severe. I mean, he disappeared for 4 weeks. He did fully recover, thank God. He came back. It was a lot of work during the 4 weeks for him to recover. It was a lot of work for us to cover his work, but we didn't miss a beat, and
Right.
he got the space he needed. Now,
Yeah.
cancer, except for the times when you have surgery, cancer is more of a long term, like, this is going to happen. The
Mm-hmm.
answer is, okay, what's the routine? Are you weekly, bi-weekly? Radiation is daily. When are you doing that? Um, how should we restructure your work? What do you want to keep doing?
Mm-hmm.
And what would you like me to distribute to somebody else? And know that if it gets hard to work, you just got to let me know. Like,
Yeah.
it's no harm, no foul. We
No.
want you to get healthy. And if you're supporting somebody going through cancer, we want you to be able to do what you need to do as a husband, as a father, as a brother, as a friend. You tell me, and we'll figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to make it work.
Yeah.
And we will. And that builds trust and confidence. And that's just being a good human.
Yeah. Well, it is, but it's also great leadership.
Thank you.
And unfortunately, we forget that because, oh, I've got revenue numbers to hit. And oh, you know what? And when you do that, it not only, and Stephen Covey talked about this in Seven Habits years ago. He says, if you don't talk about somebody behind their back, because then you lose trust with the people you're talking to, because they're like, well, you're going to do that to me, right? When you treat one employee like that, guess what? The other 99 know that you're there for them. Better culture, easier leadership, more community, all of that.
Well,
This
and they
stuff,
work harder,
and they
Michael.
do.
And again, if you go back to my failure,
Yeah,
right? And again, the learning comes from failure. Resilience is built through mistakes. These
yeah,
are facts. There's no other way. So I learned when I was 18 that only focusing on my goal,
yeah,
I'd actually be more isolated, be working harder, and less likely to accomplish our purpose. When
mm-hmm,
my goal is part of an approach, and the approach is we're going to innovate, we're going to succeed, we're going to bring out the best of each person on this team so that we are in a flow state.
yeah,
I mean, that's where you can break through and do great things. It's not all on my shoulders as the leader to
right,
accomplish the goal. It's to create the environment where
right.
the goal can be exceeded.
Yeah, very much so. I'm going to pull this together. John Maxwell, in one of his books that I read decades ago, it said leadership is influence, and I've always taken that to go. His first two books that I read, first one, developing the leader within you. Second one, developing the leaders around you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing, that as a leader, I am limited by the depth and breadth of those I bring around me and pour into, because once they, I mean, they're going to raise the ship a lot higher than I can on my own. As you
That's
learned when
right.
you were 18, as you help leaders today even learn in their worlds to make a greater impact in their people and in their community, in everything. You and I think could probably talk for the next 3 hours. I mean, this is fascinating, but I want to pull it to close. You've got a resource. Talk about the resource, and then how does somebody reach out to you?
Sure. So the resource I'm going to offer to your listeners is the 5 levers exceptional leaders pull every day. And it's going to talk through 5 things that you create, if you will, the 5 habits, right? 5 things which are every day you're in the business of alignment, which is alignment around what is most important. But you're in the business of alignment. Alignment is part of the verb aligning. That's what you do. 2,
Mm,
you have to be clear. Clear about goals, clear about roles, clear about where you are. Clarity is the key thing in communication. That is not the same as being a jerk.
right.
Okay. Ambition. People want to strive, teams want to win.
Yeah.
So let's be ambitious, but let's make achievement the positive, but getting close being also very awesome. Because when we fail, we learn. So
Mm,
we want to be ambitious, but see our setbacks as learning opportunities. Purpose. Why does it matter anyway? If you
mm,
as a leader are not uh, communicating that and embodying it through your actions, why does it matter? It mattered to me that my colleague had that level of support. It
right.
mattered to me that everyone on the team knew that was available to them, but that when one of us needs help, the rest of us work a little bit harder to pick up the
Right.
slack. That's what we do as a team, right? And
Yep.
finally, after purpose is mindset. Your mindset has got to be about growth and realizing that your first reaction is reptilian. It's to protect you from bears. It's a good signal. It's like, oh, there's the fire alarm. Okay, good.
Right.
Fire alarms are good. Fire alarms that never turn off when there's no fire are really upsetting.
Right.
So let's say, oh, that's a fire alarm. Let me turn it off. What was the fire alarm signaling?
Right.
So those 5 levers, and then to get in touch with me, if you go to GTM Flow /expert speak, You can get the 5 levers. You can also get the opportunity to meet with me if you want to talk about the curveballs you're facing and see how we can tune up your approach. So that'll all be on the same page, gtmflow.com/experts speak.
Beautiful. And did you hear everybody how crystal clear she was with that domain? You need to do the same thing in your marketing as well. Joelle, I think we need to have you back on for a marketing lesson. That's really good.
My pleasure.
You do a lot of things right, and you show up well. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for communicating so clearly, and thank you for being a passionate advocate to not only cancer survivors, but people like me who've not experienced yet, who can come alongside of those who have had it. So thank you for that book that's coming out. Crushing, let me see if I can get it. Crushing the Cancer Curveball. Look for it wherever books are sold. How about that?
On January 28th and later.
Love it. All right. Joelle, thank you so much.
Thank you.